From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, July 4th has come and gone. We are smack dab in the middle of the Major League Baseball season. So, I would say so far for the Minnesota Twins, the fan base has to be encouraged. I mean, they're playing some very good baseball. Now they're in a division that's much improved, at least the top part, with the Guardians and the Royals, who are one of the surprise teams. Detroit, not so good. Chicago, pathetic. But
boy, that's for sure.
But I look, the Twins are stacking up wins. Will they catch your Cleveland Guardians? We'll see. But I think the key is keep winning series like they're doing. Put yourself in a position to, at the minimum, be in the playoffs, which right now they would be.
Well, beat up the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Yeah, eat those cupcakes.
A la the Chicago White Sox. Yeah. Beat them as often as possible because, Lord knows they're going to have to play teams that they haven't beaten, like Cleveland. They didn't beat the Yankees. They're done with the Yankees, though.
They're done.
Sure. Okay, that's good. Yeah. If you're a Twins fan, be happy that you don't have to play
Until
Aaron
October,
Judge.
There's always that potential of a meeting in the postseason.
Yeah. But, the American League with Baltimore and New York in the East, Boston's on the rise. And I think that there's plenty of opportunity, though, for the Twins to not only, compete for a division title, possibly if they can catch Cleveland, but to go ahead and make a run in the postseason. But I think for that to happen, they are going to have to get some top flight pitching, and they're not getting that right now. They're scoring runs by the boatload. Jose Miranda never makes outs. He went 12 at bats in a row with hits. He tied a major league record.
Remarkable.
I mean, he boosted his average. He was hitting like about 250. I look in the stats. He's hitting 330.
It was a quantum leap.
Oh my goodness!
It was kind of like what Carlos Correa has done with his average in the last month or so. Well, the opportunity to add pitching does exist because as we get later into July, you're going to have a trading deadline and you're going to see teams, make some moves, especially those that are aggressive, that want to load up and make a run for what they think could be a deep run in October in the playoffs. So will the Twins go down that route? We talk about it every year. It's highly unlikely. They don't make the splashy move, but you got a good baseball team. You got a team that, as you said, can score runs. They're explosive. You bring in another starter or you bolster that bullpen, it could be the difference between round one and who knows.
Right.
And that's what you have to hope if you're a fan that Joe Pohlad and Derek Falvey, Thad Levine, the organization are thinking. Thad Levine and Derek Falvey would welcome the ability to add a player and increase payroll.
Open up the checkbook, Uncle Joe.
So, hey, Joe.
Get her going.
Can you write a big check?
Yeah, he can write a big check. The question is, will he write a big check?
Or nobody writes checks anymore, right? Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo.
Zelle. Do something.
Venmo some extra cash over to whoever it is that's going to come to the Twins for that postseason run. Look, I think that, again, the way Miranda's been hitting. And let me ask you this. If Byron Buxton continues on the roll that he has been on, man, that lineup just looks explosive. He might be your Major League comeback player of the year this year.
Well, we've talked about the threesome of Correa, Lewis, and Buxton. Now you add Miranda into the mix. You suddenly have a quartet of potent bats for the Twins. Look, I'm just glad Byron Buxton is getting on the field on a regular basis. I mean, we all know the history of his career. It's checkered as far as injuries. He's missed a ton of games. So this might be the season he logs 120 or more in the regular season. And if they get him ready to go in October, again, there's a lot of potential with this Minnesota Twins team. It'll be interesting to see if they can catch Cleveland. They haven't had a lot of success against the Guardians this year. They're 0-5.
Yeah.
I know you know that.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. And by the way, they have a quartet of guys if your buddy Rocco puts them all in the lineup at the same time. If they're healthy, and then if Rocco decides, maybe two of them need the night off, which just irritates me to no end.
I'd like to see him grind a little more.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're going to talk some soccer, I guess.
Yeah, we'll get our kicks with Manny Lagos coming up on 10K Takes, your Twins ticket.
Hot rod, collector cars, street rods, muscle cars, vintage Corvettes, oh my goodness. Whatever you ride, Lakeville loves them too. There are many great car events in the area that you will love Lakeville as much as you love your cars. Join us for Cruise Night in July, featuring a classic car and truck parade throughout our city and historic downtown. Plan your trip at visitlakeville.org.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 takes, Wally and Eric, and we're going to talk some soccer now. You know that Minnesota United got up to a great start this year, but things have not gone as well of late. And to talk about that and much more in the world of soccer, we bring in Manny Lagos from Minnesota United. Manny, in a nutshell, what has happened? I know that you've lost a lot of your guys to international play, the friendlies and so on, as teams rev up for tournaments coming up. But in general, what has gone on lately that didn't go on for you guys earlier, or vice versa, actually?
Yeah, I think that big word, so far, it's in a way that just every game we've kind of been in it, we've somehow gotten a loss. And ultimately, we had 10 guys for a couple games gone, and 7 starters were out for international duty. Whether we had a couple of our Finnish guys were representing the national team in Finland. We got 2 guys in the Canadian national team. They keep on making a great run in Copa America that we missed. We had 2 guys that represent Panama that played in the Copa America. And then we just really, I think a little bit of bad luck. Although I don't like making excuses. You create your bad luck, and I think the roster has been thin from injuries. And, one of the cool things about soccer, we have these mid-season transfer windows. It's almost like a trade deadline where we'll make some moves in July. And ultimately, the group did a great job to start the season with great competitiveness. And then we just hit a wall here. And I think we're going to have time to recalibrate and get back at it. And we'll start with a big one this weekend against Houston.
And tell us about that trip to Houston, because Hurricane Beryl, it was a Cat 1 for a while. Then when it made landfall in South Texas, tropical storm. But they got battered by rain. Now the temp is going way up with high humidity. So from a hydration standpoint, protecting the athletes, what's this weekend going to be like in Houston, Texas?
Yeah, it's interesting. We just had, a tough loss against the LA Galaxy where, they got some big-time players, a couple ex-Barcelona stars, a Brazilian player they just paid $12 million for. And we lost 2-1, 1-1 late. We were up. We were on top of them. I thought we were going to get the win. And then they kind of counterpunched right at the end of the game and scored in the 89th minute to win 2-1. And I think that game was about their roster. I think it is about the weather. Houston's a very solid team, a team that's very competitive, but the management of playing in 90 to 100 degree humidity soccer match where you are running constantly for 45 minutes with a 15-minute break and another 45 minutes is insanely hard. So massively important for our coaches to be ready to kind of tactically decide how they're going to have their energy outputs, how they're going to put the strategy of playing that kind of heat into the game. But ultimately, it's about winning and kind of having that will to fight through the elements and making sure that the group battles and tries to win the game. And so the one thing MLS does, you do have at 30-minute mark, you have a water break, which is really important. You have, again, at the 60-minute mark. So you really have 30 minutes break, halftime break, and then another break at the 60-minute mark. So that helps a little bit. But ultimately, again, it's really about managing the game by picking your moments where you're going to really up your tempo, up your energy level in terms of how you go forward, throwing numbers forward, and then making sure you still have that good defensive shape, that you're not going to have goals. And if you don't get scored on, you got a good chance of tying. And if you score some goals, you got a good chance of winning.
All right, let's talk about the U.S. national team. They're going to be off for a while. They lost in pool play, did not advance to the quarterfinals. And as you told us before we started this interview, basically had the brackets or the pools set up how they wanted. What's going on there? Why can't the U.S. field teams that can advance. And look, we're 2 years away from World Cup, hosting the World Cup. We've got to be able to compete in 2 years, don't we?
We do. I mean, guys, we have to be all in. It's a little like it's right now in this current group trying to win an NBA championship. The next 2 years, we're all in on the current roster we have. We've got a young kid, Christian Pulisic, that plays AC Milan. He's one of the best players on that team. We've got players all playing at high-level teams in Europe that really aren't the biggest superstars in the world, like maybe France and Spain and Brazil, but they're good enough as a group that they should be able to compete against every team in the world, and particularly in our home country, on our home soil. So this loss has really kind of set the U.S. Soccer Federation under a lot of pressure over the last 7 days. What's the plan? What's going to happen? They haven't announced it yet, but certainly they're looking at the entire process of what the next 2 years look like. And frankly, we've got to make sure we are all on board and supporting them. But part of that is once they decide if the current coach is going to stay there, Greg Berhalter, if they're going to go a different direction, and then we move on and we figure out how are we going to do everything we can to make sure that this timing is right for us to like have another explosion of soccer in this country. It happened in '94 when we hosted the World Cup. This time we have a way better team, way better young kids that should put on their jersey and represent the country proudly by making a run at the World Cup.
On the flip side, Manny, the U.S. women's national team is a global superpower, probably the favorites to win the gold in the Olympics. Were you surprised that Alex Morgan did not make the team? I mean, she's an iconic player on the women's side.
Yeah, it's funny. I think if you look at the shift, you have the men. It's really maybe about taking some of that moxie and then how they step on the field, believing that they're going to win because they are the best in the world. Which on paper, that's easy, but that means every game, the mentality of the women and their culture is so strong that they just overwhelm teams with their belief and their unity and how much energy and output they put into a game. And I think there's a lot of lessons the men need to take from the women in terms of just having that type of mentality. Because again, like I said, I think we've got a roster now that really can compete. It's about the group being a unit. And I think for the women's side with Alex Morgan, the rest of the world, particularly some of these countries in Europe, their leagues, women's leagues are exploding and they are developing some high-level players. And we didn't win our last World Cup. And for the first time in a long time, I think the women had to really look at what's the next phase of making sure they compete and that they win every international tournament, whether it's Olympics or World Cup. And so I think with the new coach and a new GM for all of U.S. soccer, I think they have to make tough decisions about how they build and rebuild their roster. And so you have some of these iconic female women's players and you have a coach coming in that has tough choices. Do I start now to filter in some really new up-and-coming young U.S. women's stars that are playing in the NWSL? Or do I stick with the old veterans? I think it's like in any sport, any situation, that balance of youth versus experience. And I think in this one, she really wanted to start a new wave of generation of future soccer stars for women's soccer.
Explain to our viewers, like you explained to me, how Olympic soccer is set up and what the meaning of it is compared to the World Cup, particularly on the men's side.
Yeah.
Because I think folks, I had no idea until you said it. I didn't realize that it was basically a U23 tournament. But give us some insight on that and why that's set up like that and how it works.
Yeah, sure. So you're right, and I don't want to make confuse even more. But on the women's side, it still is the full national team. It's there's no U23. It's just the women's best players in the world. They have the women's Olympics and they have the women's World Cup. I still think the women's World Cup is more regarded as the biggest pinnacle of winning anything because that's the championship of the world. For the men's, what they do with the Olympics is they almost look at it like a development model into the World Cup. So it's usually about 2 years before the World Cup because it's every 4 years, but it cycles out differently than the World Cup for the men's. And this is a U23 tournament where you can have 3 overage players. So we've got a couple overage players, some MLS stars that are playing in it. And then after that, it's like kind of all our young up-and-coming stars. And ultimately, it's a little bit challenging because to make it even more confusing, sometimes you'll have a big-time star, but it's because this tournament is not FIFA's federated sponsored. Sometimes a club that owns a player that's worth maybe like $50 million, they don't always let him go to the Olympics. So although it's a super great honor right now to represent your Olympic team, for the men, it's kind of like almost like your developmental tournament of World Championship. versus the actual height of winning the championship, which is the World Cup.
Before we let you go, let's circle it back to Minnesota United. Tell us what you like about Eric Ramsey, youngest head coach, Major League Soccer, comes from Man U, Manchester United to Min U. So that's EPL to the MLS. But I'm hearing great things. What do you like about him, Manny?
Yeah, again, we are going through a huge moment of adversity. There's no doubt. Both our fans, we expect to win. We expect to make the playoffs, make a run. And you got somebody that has hit this adversity and at such a young age to be so accomplished and leading the club. And, we have a new leadership with a new GM and Khalid Elamed, who's been great as well. So to me, Eric just personifies where we are as a club, the growth we need to have. He brings an ability to communicate to all our players. We have a ton of foreign players, especially Spanish guys. He speaks Spanish fluently. He relates really well to them. Like I said, I think right now I can very much say that the locker room, there's no way it's being lost because this is a guy who's going to treat everybody with respect. He's going to really demand better by the group, both individually and collectively. And it's been a great ride with him so far. Like I said, we've got to see a lot of his tactical acumen, our fan base, which loves the tactics and chess match of soccer. He's really shown some great acumen at such a young age. And again, I'm excited like everybody else in terms of being honest about we are in a really tough moment of adversity. And this is where you get to learn about yourselves both as a group. But also I think Eric is a young coach. He gets to learn more and become even a better coach through the adversity we've had the last couple of weeks.
Well, Manny, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Good luck to Minnesota United as you finish off this difficult stretch, and hopefully we'll be talking some wins later on this summer.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. All the best this summer.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Manny.
He's Manny Lagos from Minnesota United talking soccer right here on 10,000 Takes. Stay with us. More after this time.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Absolutely.
This is green light situation.
Lee Hodges.
TPC Twin Cities, you never know what you're gonna get.
I'm strolling in historic downtown Lakeville, which is the heart of Panaprog activities. Panaprog is short for Panorama of Progress, and this festival has been going on since 1967. Over 65 events spanning over a week. You'll need to stay more than a night to get your fill of fun. Panaprog offers a wide variety of events and activities for all ages. Panaprog is a celebration of all things local. Plan your trip at visitlakeville.org.
And we roll along here on 10,000 Takes. It's the middle of the heated summer, but there is basketball going on. And there will actually be big-time interest at Target Center this weekend, Sunday afternoon of all things. Yuck. Your gal, Caitlin Clark, comes to town with the Indiana Fever for the first of two appearances at Target Center. Now, we know that all the folks from Iowa are going to be driving up. They'll fill Target Center on Sunday, even though it's an afternoon game. But how good is that Indiana Fever team? And how much better has Caitlin Clark gotten since the beginning of the season?
Well, I think they're starting to make progress. Slow start. For Caitlin Clark, this will already be her, fourth trip into the Twin Cities, right? I mean, the Hawkeyes came here, and then she was here for the Big Ten tournament, and she'll come back. So she's familiar with Target Center and the barn. The interesting thing to me is the Lynx also are going to retire Maya Moore's jersey number 23. Right. They're going to put it up in the rafters with the 4 championship banners and all the other great players they've had. Caitlin Clark is from Des Moines, Iowa. So the closest WNBA team to Des Moines is the Minnesota Lynx. She grew up idolizing Maya Moore. I'm sure there will be a good moment before the game where those two have an exchange. I remember running into Caitlin Clark at a Timberwolves playoff game the season before this one. So she comes here to Minnesota a lot. So that'll be fun. Good for Maya Moore, who 4 titles with the Lynx. I think 2 at UConn. She won a state championship in Georgia as a prep player.
A gold medal
with Team USA. Yep. I think I'll make the declaration now. Probably the winningest athlete in Minnesota pro sports history. And as far as the talent that goes along with it, she walked away in her prime. She pulled a Jim Brown or a Barry Sanders, and she did it for personal reasons. And good for her. But boy, I don't know if we've seen a more winning athlete as far as championships and talent combined. I mean, she's top of the mountain.
Yeah. Well, no question. She was special, and they have the banners to prove it.
Yeah.
And rightly so. They're going to. And how old was she when she retired? Like 29?
Yeah. And she went to try to help out people that are wrongly convicted, and she got a guy out of the joint down in Oklahoma early. She wound up marrying him.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting story. I'll throw this out there too, because you kind of said yuck when you heard it was a Sunday afternoon game. I agree. It should be at least at night. But how about the WNBA playing an outdoor game?
You're
playing this summer.
Absolutely. Why not? Especially in the northern part of the country. I don't want them playing in Houston like Minnesota United has to play in the heat. And
goodness not.
Those guys got to run for an hour and a half.
I would think it'd be a lot of fun. Put them at Target Center and have a backup plan. If the weather got bad, you could move it into the arena because it's right next door.
Yeah, put it over
Target
at Target
Field is what I meant. Yeah, so
I agree. Yeah, that's a good idea. You
garner some attention.
I thought you were going to try to incite me in some way, but I was wrong. You're giving me something that I would agree with.
Well, I believe the Iowa women played an outdoor game at Kinnick Stadium, the Iowa football,
and they packed the house.
They did. They had a record crowd of close to like 70,000. So why not?
Yeah, no, and they could use the publicity. The WNBA could use the publicity.
If you put the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever at Soldier Field, or even where the White Sox play, it would be the largest crowd of the summer in Chicago for any sport.
Yeah, that's for sure. They've hit the skids, haven't they?
Yes, indeed.
White Sox, Cubs,
Bulls, Blackhawks,
Bears, none of them are any good.
Yeah, it's the winless city, right?
Yes, not the windy, but the winless city. Okay, one final note before we go to takes. Tragedy striking the Minnesota Vikings. How do you see that affecting the team this year?
Well, just, the worst thing you can hear for a young man, Kyrie Jackson, who was a draft choice out of Oregon. They thought he was going to be in the rotation at the cornerback position, but that's all secondary. I mean, he's gone. And so your thoughts and your prayers go with the family, anyone who knew him closely, and then beyond that, the impact it may have on the Minnesota Vikings, because it is a dark cloud as you start the season. Now, he didn't have the time to integrate with the team like, say, Corey Stringer did.
Right, no, that's
who was
different.
with the
Completely
team for a few years, and then we lost him tragically in Mankato a few years ago.
While the guys were there.
Exactly.
That's a little different.
But nonetheless, this is a tough one. And Kevin O'Connell and the coaching staff are going to have to navigate through it, but you feel so bad for what happened.
Yeah, no question. All right, stay with us. Takes of the day on deck. You are watching 10,000 Takes.
Absolutely.
This is green light situation.
Lee Hodges. TPC Twin Cities, you never know what you're going to get.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Fair airing. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10K takes on television as we wrap up yet another episode. And a shout out to the viewers watching in the Twin Cities and the suburbs. Always good to have them on board. Takes of the day. We're going to find out if you're angry American, happy camper, giddy guardian, crusty cavalier. What is it today?
Crusty cavalier, he says. Well, if you recall, it wasn't that long ago that Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins, center fielder, who is having a pretty good year so far this year, has been really hot of late, was teamed up with another guy that came out of the Twins system by the name of Miguel Sano. And they were going to be the 1-2 punch that would carry them to the promised land, that would end that streak since 1991 of no championships here in Minnesota. Well, Buxton, as you know, has been in and out of the lineup because of injuries, although much better this year. Miguel Sano was pretty darn good back in 2017. He was an all-star, as a matter of fact. Not only that, he was in the home run hitting contest, the home run derby. He finished second to some guy by the name of Aaron Judge. He lost to him by 1 home run in the finals of that home run hitting contest. Needless to say, things have gone downhill for Miguel since then. Was out of baseball last year. After 2022, the Twins let him go. Nobody picked him up. He only had 60 at-bats, was hitting a paltry .083 when they let him go. He hooked on with the Angels this year after playing some ball down in the Dominican. And looked like he might be reviving his career. Well, that came to an end earlier this week. The Angels designated Miguel for assignment. Basically, they mean they're parting ways with Miguel Sano. Miguel this year in 2024, hitting .205, 2 home runs, and 6 runs batted in. Not exactly all-star numbers. So farewell to Miguel. I do not believe he's going to get another shot. And I guess the good news is the Twins probably parted ways with him at the exact right time.
Yeah, he did not turn into the next David Ortiz. Let's check out that mood meter. He's a happy camper. Wow, so you're happy that Miguel is out of work?
No, you're missing the point here.
You're happy that the Twins
made the correct decision.
Cut ties when they had to.
Interestingly, I was upset when they got rid of Brian Dozier, but boy, that turned out to be the right move because his numbers fell off precipitously after they got rid of him.
I like Brian Dozier too, so we got to give the Twins kudos when they deserve it on Dozier and Sano. I saw Miguel Sano a few days ago in Oakland. I was out there in the Bay Area, and they were playing the Angels. He was at third base. And
so he was playing?
He was playing. I saw one of his last games with the Halos.
There you go.
Speaking of Oakland.
Yes.
A trip to the Coliseum. Look, if you've never been and you want to see a game in Oakland, clock is ticking. There's only half a season left.
It ain't happening.
They tailgate in the parking lot. It's rather festive, but it's also sad because people now know the A's are going to leave Oaktown. Well, here's the deal. They're probably going to spend 3 to 4 years in Sacramento and then presumably go to Las Vegas. But I think that's a desert mirage. I think they're going to stay in Sacktown. In fact, Sacramento's metro area population, 2.3 million. That's the exact same as Las Vegas. And you could still pull in some of those A's fans from the East Bay. It's roughly 90 miles, Oakland to Sacramento. Now, they get triple-digit heat in Sacramento, just like Vegas, but it cools down more at night, and it's not the sustained heat like they get in Las Vegas. I think the Oakland A's may become the Sacramento A's. Stay tuned on that one. I know that minor league park in Sacramento, I drove by it.
Oh, boy.
It's not even close to being CHS Field, let alone an MLB ballpark.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
Good luck to the A's.
As Aaron Judge and all the superstars roll through their next season.
Yes.
Okay, let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to David Weld, Paul Langfellow, Manny Lagos, Rocky, or Wally. I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes Your Sports Ticket.